And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
We are exploited. We are downtrodden. We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights. So the only way we're going to get some of this oppression and exploitation away from us or aside from us is come together against the common enemy.
I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.
Get together, have a few laughs.
Welcome to the Iowa Talk Guys. I'm your host, Theo.
I'm your host, Teepee.
And I'm Erock.
Tonight, I guess we're doing a little something different. We've been talking about it for ever and a half.
It's finally time.
We're going to start this, and we're going to get this one out of the way finally. There's a lot to talk about. I guess unpack is the word that people use these days.
Yeah, unpack your backpack.
With repercussions that could easily... I'm convinced that we are still feeling today.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are still living in this story.
And I'm excited for doing this tonight. And I've said it before because, like I said, this opens us up to all these other things that we want to do. But
one of the reasons that we thought about doing this podcast in the first place.
Right. And I truly believe that we're seeing the fruits of the labors of this operation in our society today.
Absolutely.
So
we certainly are scientifically.
It's scary, right? So we're going to get into this. Theo was the one to finally drum this up.
Finally.
We were talking about it.
You did a massive, nice report on what, episode 7?
Mm-hmm.
And it took me until episode, what are we at? 37?
Yeah, 30 episodes later. But we got it. We're here.
Here we are.
We told you. There's a lot to talk about.
I've worked quite a few hours between then and now.
Yeah, we've all. Haven't we all? So
I want to start by saying that there are a lot of things just technologically, we know this, that we just take for granted today.
Right. Absolutely.
And when you do take the time to stop and think about it for a sec, like, I hate to say it. It sucks when you leave your phone at home. When you go to work and you leave your phone, it sucks.
Or like when you got to take a poop and you forget your phone.
And you forget your phone. I mean, it is nice to read articles.
It's like torture now,
It
right?
is like, it's just like it's a newspaper in your pocket.
For real.
And yada, yada, yada. I mean, that's why they want to make it your ID, I think. Right? That's the phone is going to become the digital ID. It's going to become the wallet. It's going to become.
If you look at what China's doing, and if we're going to copy anything that their mega cities and stuff are doing, then yeah, your ID, your medical records, your wallet, like you said,
boom,
and
right
then
here.
They're going to eventually link it to RFID.
So that's just one piece of technology.
Biometrics and stuff.
I'll tell you something really fun that happened to me. I don't know that I even told you guys this. I think maybe I did. But so Christmas Eve, my propane tank ran out. My LP tank ran out. All right. Long story short, LP company sold, and they just came out all the time.
Right. Didn't renew with the new one.
New one didn't. So we ran out. So they came. They filled it. Guess what? Guess what happened then?
Froze.
Furnace went out. This is Christmas Eve. And if you remember in Iowa, this is like Christmas Eve is like the coldest damn day we've had so far.
Yeah.
So it turns up, since the tank ran out, a bunch of stuff kicked up and got into the furnace, and like the burners, like it was throwing up a flame and kicking a sensor and telling it to shut the gas off.
There's something going on.
It's getting
here.
hot.
Yeah.
So what did I do?
Had to go get a new furnace.
No, not a new furnace. I called my guy.
Oh yeah.
So he goes down there. He fixes the problem. It didn't even take a part, man. It didn't even take a part. It was just him taking the burners out, cleaning them up. I don't know how to work a furnace or clean a furnace up, and then 2 hours of his time, $210, please. What do you do?
Yeah, no.
Guy came to my house on Christmas Eve. I called him. He came. That's why he's my guy.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Boom. Dude, my heat went out.
Yeah, that sucks. And for somebody to do that, by the way, that's awesome for him to only charge you $210.
Well, I mean, $105 an hour.
So now you know how Texas felt when they had that cold spell.
This was in no way, shape, or form comparable to the temperatures that Texas was experiencing at that time.
With frozen.
This was a
rain,
whole different ball game. This was like -30 with
with the wind chill. Yeah.
That day.
Yeah, it is like Little House on the Prairie out here.
Yeah.
Anyways.
What I'm getting at is modern things that we just take for granted. And it turns out that Nazi Germany was responsible for a lot of things that were invented and we still use today. I want to say that Fanta soda.
Yeah.
I think that was Nazi Germany deal.
NASA.
Yeah. The Volkswagen Beetle.
Yep.
I want to say that the Volkswagen factories were actually a disguise in the 30s. They weren't pumping out Volkswagens, and in fact, they built very few. They were disguised to build munitions.
That's weird.
And, probably mechanized.
Maybe that's why they had that rail cannon, that rail gun that shot.
They had a
Volkswagen-sized shells.
They had a ton of different things going on. They had great advances in technology that, at least to our knowledge these days, were unbeknownst to the United States and the British. I find it hard to believe the British didn't know.
Well, yeah.
Because
and that's when
they're masters of intelligence and whatnot. But
right, absolutely, they're way ahead of us. They had the V2 rocket program. I mean, they were making big leaps and bounds in technology and war.
We're going to get into the V2.
So that's why at the end of the war, it was a mad dash between the United States and Russia, because the Cold War started right after World War II.
Absolutely,
right? After the treaty was signed.
Absolutely.
And they knew, from all these places that we found, especially when the German army surrendered, like, where did this wow, this is some pretty awesome stuff.
Germany conquered. Germany's not necessarily a really, really small country, but they're not that big. They're not like Kazakhstan.
Right.
Which Kazakhstan's like the 8th largest country or 7th, 6th, something like that. Or Brazil, or they're small compared to us.
Yeah,
they're probably the size of our state times.
They're the Hun.
Times
no
5
slouches.
or 6. But they conquered just an absolutely massive amount of territory. I think it was probably a lot of tactics were probably a big part of that as well. Blitzkrieg. Just like hell for minutes or hours and days, right? But getting it done, just doing it.
Yeah.
Mething
up your soldiers.
Yes, it's funny how we thought of that immediately. Another development. In fact, the name of that drug was Pervitin, I believe.
Yeah.
They were tweaking out their guys to stay up for days on end and fucking just fight. No food. You don't need
Super
food.
soldiers, yeah.
You do not need food. I just take this Pervitin.
Just kill. That's all you have to do, yeah.
And, I stay up for days and kill.
It's great.
Rape and maim and pillage and burn. It's
for the fear.
It's what we do.
So, yeah, at the end of the war, though, I mean, it was obvious they had made great advances in warfare. So there was a mad dash.
They knew that there was technology out there.
Right. And so there was a mad dash between the United States and Russia to get as many scientists as they could.
Because you could seize all of the assets that you want. But if you don't know exactly what it is and you don't have the people to operate them, The people that built them.
I mean, eventually you'll figure it out, but it's a lot faster if you have them.
Well, we're going to
think about the minds that they have, right? These brilliant scientists.
Some of the most advanced scientific minds, many of the most scientific minds, the greatest scientific minds at that time.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. Still to this day, quite frankly, as far as development.
German engineering is still, talked about in our day and age about being good stuff, right?
So this is our story.
Good old German engineering.
This is our story of Operation Paperclip.
What was Operation Paperclip, Theo?
It was a classified U.S. government intelligence program to capture and collect
and recruit.
I don't want to say as many as possible, but maybe. But yes, Nazi scientists, great scientific minds,
and they were eager to surrender when they found out what the Russians were doing with them, because they would just pick their brains about the certain things. What is this? What does this do? Okay, thank you.
Well, the Russians actually were very eager to keep the scientists as well. In fact, one of the most well-known scientists of the Third Reich, Dr. Kurt Blume, I want to say he escaped, like the British or the American zone for the Soviet zone.
Really?
Yeah, which is interesting. It's a very interesting character. He was actually the deputy surgeon general of the Third Reich, and his specialty was bacteriological warfare.
Interesting.
And it's pretty cruel cat. We're going to get into that.
Yeah.
That's one of the guys. Yeah, it was the top scientists in the German war effort were recruited, weapons makers, rocket developers, medical researchers, physicians, engineers, pilots, aviation physicians.
Oh,
you name it. And then it even transitioned, I believe, into business people, business and all sorts of other disciplines, if you will, not just the sciences.
Wait till we get to we'll talk about that Klaus Schwab and his daddy and what he did.
Oh, old cockbonnet Klaus.
Yeah.
I finally saw that photo. It was very disturbing.
Oh, yeah, isn't it? It's wild.
Hold on. I have it right here. Let me show you.
Why do you
guys.
have it saved on your phone?
Because I saw it again, and it's actually a better picture, and I love showing people, hey, right here, just like this, guys. This guy is trying to say that your gas stove
is going to kill you.
You shouldn't have it anymore because it causes asthma in kids, not cigarettes and whatnot.
Right. Super smart.
And
anyways,
so speaking of Nazis, old cockbonnet, Klaus.
Yeah. So there's you brought up a pretext here, and there's a quote from Annie Jacobson's book Operation Paperclip, a secret intelligence program that brought Nazi scientists to America.
Annie Jacobson was the essentially in her book, that book that you just named, was the primary resource for this.
Yeah, and it's a great book.
I watched a bunch of other YouTube videos. I didn't read any other book.
So let's read that pretext there.
These were Hitler's top weapons makers, and Operation Paperclip became a classified military program to bring them to the United States. She said this on PBS NewsHour. You can find that video on YouTube. It's on YouTube.
Yep.
That's right. These were Hitler's top weapons makers, and Operation Paperclip became a classified military program to bring them to the United States.
The most intimate details of the program were kept secret and out of the public eye and undesired scrutiny, while the public were being told that this was a program to bring good Germans,
quote unquote,
to the United States and to work in various, like military intelligence, government applications, weapons, primarily, CIA,
and
Air Force, Navy, Army.
CIA wasn't created yet, but
no, but but they were here for the OSS, who was involved in Operation Paperclip, in fact, turning into the CIA. They
Correct.
were there.
Yes.
We brought the guys here
Because they
Right.
they worked with the German secret police guys.
But we're not going to get. We're not really going to get into these guys too much right now. What we're going to do is we're going to get into how bad were things in Germany.
No, yeah, we're talking about these good Germans and what they did.
Well,
and
primarily we're talking about what happened in Germany and what they were doing. What were they really doing?
Yeah,
it wasn't necessarily that they were just bringing everybody in to. As bad as it sounds, it's not that they were just bringing them all in to gas them and kill them, or necessarily just work them. They were bringing them in for far more sinister reasons, if you will. Okay, and it's as bad as like humanly imaginable.
Yeah,
type scenario.
It's horrific,
terrible.
Erock, you scared yet? Mm-hmm. Okay.
On November 29th of 1944. An American particle physicist named Samuel Goudsmit was with an army unit. I believe they were following the 3rd Armored Division.
Okay.
But they were in Strasbourg. The 3rd Armored Division was Patton's, right?
I believe so.
And they were at the place of this guy named Dr. Eugen Hagen. And they're reading like his personal correspondence.
That'd be Eugene in American.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not a bad name either. It's old-fashioned. I like it.
Yeah.
Like Haagen-Dazs, like the ice cream?
Oh, Hagen.
Yeah, man. I don't know if it's any relation.
Sounds like Nazi ice cream.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if there's any relation, like I said. But anyways.
So, in this correspondence, they found something to the extent of Hagen asking what will you call him, a peer or a colleague at a big-time university for the Reich, I believe. You know, of the 100 prisoners that you sent me, I believe my numbers are correct here, but 18 of them had deceased upon arrival. However, many more of them were, too sick to experiment upon.
Right.
And, can you send me more between the ages of 18 and 40 of good health and of military type stature?
Yeah. I need more warm bodies.
Yes.
To experiment on.
So go ahead, sorry.
Is he like the Dr. Fauci?
Yep.
Yeah, except for puppies, he was using human beings. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Continue.
I have so much to say right now. But we're talking about something else.
Yeah.
So they kept progressing, and there are all sorts of operations like competing with each other. Operation Alsace was one of the operations to capture scientists and science and documents.
Okay.
SIOS. It's like this. Dang it, I don't have it here with me exactly what the acronym is. But it was another competing agency, and then all of a sudden, the British, they have a bunch running around in French.
Oh, yeah, the Brits were trying to get them, too.
So as they're progressing their way through Europe, they keep finding scientists, they keep finding clues, they keep finding leads. They have a bunch of, they end up making interrogation facilities and whatnot, and interrogating a bunch of people, and it turns out that the atomic program for the Third Reich was just a complete failure. They found this out from some atomic scientists for the Third Reich. Didn't work out for them.
They didn't have Einstein with them, huh?
But it did turn out that rocketry, aviation medicine, chemical warfare, and biological warfare were of just cutting edge for the Third Reich.
Yeah, especially the rocketry.
The rocketry was in certain German scientists' words, like 20 years ahead.
Yeah.
Of the Americans. I don't know if that's them exaggerating or not, but it wouldn't be hard to believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get into the V2 later, like you said.
Well, that's where we're going to go right now. Actually, the the V2 rocket was derived from the V1. The V1 was an impressive machine. in and of itself, but the V2 actually flew hypersonically. I believe it flew like 5 times the speed of sound.
Yeah, that's what they were working on.
It could go like 190 miles, so they could fire it all the way over to Great Britain.
Yeah, and they were trying to work on firing one from France to New York.
They wanted to get one into space. They were very, and that's actually the altitude. I think having enough fuel to get it high enough to drop, because they put a gyroscope in this thing. It's like the first guided missile, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had a gyroscope in it to locate and to drop within.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
1940 something.
The 40s. Yeah, it was 1943. I think it was actually developed.
Wow.
And it was terrifying. In fact, they had a celebration just a couple weeks before the Allies really started making it through.
Yeah.
And they were like launching V2s from this castle yard and giving all sorts of awards to Hitler was there, I believe.
I think I've seen that video.
No, I don't know about
maybe not
a
that
video.
one.
I haven't seen a video.
There's
personally.
videos of the V2 rocket firing and
but
bunch of scientists in white coats and Nazi bands slapping each other on the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
good, yeah. So sexy, yeah.
Well, it was gooder than anything anybody else had.
Way gooder. So
this thing was being manufactured at a place called Peenemünde. It was a proving ground on the Baltic, and it got bombed out by the British,
Brits,
I believe. Yeah. So operations actually ended up moving to the
Nordhausen?
the German town of Nordhausen. And
sounds like a good beer.
It does. I'm sure it's I'm sure it's a beautiful place.
Yeah. But yeah, it was moved.
Well, this was the location of a factory called Middleworks. Now, that's what they did.
Okay.
They made They moved it from Peenemünde because it got bombed out by the British.
Yeah, it sucks when that happens, huh?
Yeah. And they moved it to a factory called Middleworks. Now, what was unique about Middleworks is that it was built in caves, mines. It was an underground complex where they could manufacture V2s.
Mm-hmm. Out of sight.
It was bomb-proof, essentially.
Yeah.
Everybody's heard about their underground factories. Well, this is probably one of the most...
so, like the Area 51 of...
And the SS kept them supplied with slave labor, Jews, and other undesirables.
That's the most chilling thing about the place, is that it was actually supplied by the SS, yes, with prisoners.
Yeah.
As labor.
I remember reading one in particular, good German, like we're not going to name any names, but he was reported that when he was showing other new scientists to the facility, because they had the slave labor running 24/7. There was nonstop.
It was 12-hour days,
literally
7 days a week,
working themselves to death. Yeah,
Yes.
and they had 2 shifts, people going through,
literally working themselves to death.
and they would just push the bodies off to the side and stack them up, and they had a whole nother crew coming to pick up the bodies and take them out.
Yeah,
they had a whole other assigned crew just to in dead body detail take out. And he was quoted, this individual that we'll get into in a next episode, I think, that he said, pay no attention to the bodies. This is necessary for the progress of the Third Reich.
Yeah. But that was actually in the book by Annie Jacobson. She did quote that. I recall that. It's amazing. Yeah, somebody
It's
else.
sick.
I can't remember who else said this, but somebody said parts and prisoners go into Middleworks. V2s and corpses come out. So.
All necessary, right? Quote unquote. And that's pretty sickening, because that individual ended up retiring, working for a nice, cush government job and here in America, dying on his own deathbed. Long life he had.
Well, we're going to get into him later.
We will.
So, prisoners were routinely hung at this place for underperformance, for stealing food, for you name it, just like any other prison works, right? Except the punishment there was just hanging. Labor was cheap.
Well, and you didn't have to waste a bullet on them.
Yeah,
hung them.
labor was cheap here. You know?
Which is so sick, dude. Like, how many people you're rounding up? Like, do you remember the number that she quoted in that book of the amount of slave labor that passed, that died at that camp?
I don't know if the one figure that I did take down. Yes, actually, I did take down figures. 60,000 slaves.
Holy smokes!
And 30,000 worked to death.
Half.
Any
labor,
varying
half
number
the labor
of reasons.
force.
Yeah, that's what she quoted in the book.
Over how long of a time?
I can't recall what she said, but I mean, you know, whether it's a week or 5 years, it doesn't really matter at that point.
Yeah, that's still. I mean, that's crazy.
Middle Works, I believe, was built in like 1943, so that would have gave him like 2 years at the longest, right?
Okay, so that's 15,000 a year, I guess, if you average it out that way. But still,
How many were actually working?
all
When they died,
Like, yeah, on a given-
I don't know a lot of them, but you know the term "work to death." I mean, it's just ailments, and there was no sanitation, there was no water, and there's barely any food.
I mean,
It was just
their quarters, if you could call them that they stayed in, was also their bathroom
by late,
and their chow hall.
And this is all underground?
Yeah, underground in caves.
Yeah.
Yes.
You only saw the daylight as a corpse.
They had ovens outside to burn corpses. It ended up it was a big issue. They didn't have the ovens weren't large enough. Became an issue. They couldn't burn all the bodies. They had to stack them up. So that was just one of the places. Another one of the places. Yeah, that was supplied by Dora. That was the name of the concentration camp. Dora
the Explorer. But you said here, you have right here, Allied soldiers that reached the position first noted the foul stench of piles of bodies.
Yeah.
And sick, suffering human beings inhabiting the what was left after the Germans retreated.
In the caves.
They just locked them up and were like, so long, suckers.
Oh, you better get out of here. You guys are on your own.
The Americans are coming and we are fucking leaving.
Yeah. That was it. You know, there was a scenario at one point in time in the mines when V2s were either blowing up mid-flight, malfunctioning. You know, there were malfunctions and explosions on the launch pad.
Yeah.
There was a series of hangings after that because factory leadership believed it was sabotage, so they set an example of a few people. There was a revolt after that, staged by a bunch of Ukrainians and Russians, I guess, that were held prisoner.
Working together?
Imagine that. Mm-hmm. Well, no, I mean, just imagine that, like a bunch of Ukrainians and Russians causing trouble. This is bullshit.
Oh, yeah. Hey, there's nothing new under the sun, huh?
Yeah, no. Oh, God bless them.
I need to get the fuck out of here.
Yes. Yeah. I can't even try a Russian accent right now, but so they staged a revolt, right?
Yeah, we need to leave right now.
It's time.
This is bullshit. I'd rather be in a gulag than this fucking place.
As a result of that revolt, like a dozen of them were hung.
Yeah?
They were actually left there right above the assembly line.
Oh, as a reminder?
As a reminder, a nice reminder. This is what happens when you revolt. They were released only once the electric crane was requested back.
Oh.
Yeah. They had work to do, so they had to drop the bodies finally. I think it was a matter of a couple days, you know.
Yeah, well, long enough to let everybody know not to revolt. Oh, that's sick, though, man.
Erock, where are you?
Yeah.
Just reading.
Left to right. Top to bottom.
I'm learning.
Take time off for headaches.
So, another place, a more famous place, if you will, Dachau.
Dachau. Yep. This was a real sick facility.
Yeah,
dude.
it was.
There's a lot of nasty stuff that went on here.
It was one of the largest. Mm-hmm. It was discovered by Allied troops, like with jars of human and insect tissues. Mm-hmm. And it turned out that it was a medical research camp, like facility, laboratory.
Yeah,
and they had humans to study upon.
Wasn't Dachau the same place they were doing the twin human experiments?
I don't know about that. The Angel of Death. I didn't
play that Slayer song.
Okay. I can't remember. I thought it was Dachau. Erock, look that up for us, please. Where was the Nazi twin experiments committed? What concentration camp were the Nazi twin experiments done on? Which is really sick no matter where it happened, right? I mean, they were doing stuff like, hey, can your brother feel this? And then punch the other brother in the face or smash his nuts with a hammer. And then, oh, they can't feel it. Let's see. Let's see if we can shock them and they can feel it that way.
It was at Auschwitz?
Oh, okay. That's another famous one.
Well, we're going to get into that place, so don't even worry about that.
Yeah, okay.
Actually, I didn't put it in the notes, but we're going to talk about it.
And what other... Wasn't there atmospheric pressure, G-force?
No. We're going to get into that.
Okay.
We're going to get into that.
Okay, sorry. I'm jumping the gun.
So, what was the medical experiments that were particularly relevant to aviation that were happening at Dachau were freezing experiments. Why freezing experiments?
Space. Duh.
No.
I don't know. Deep sea?
When your pilots are shot down and they crash land and survive a crash in the English Channel, that fucking water's not warm, dude.
Yeah.
So
wetsuits.
Two things are going to kill people. Exposure to the cold water, right?
Yep.
That water's...
You'll get hypothermia real quick.
I'm sure within 10 degrees Fahrenheit of freezing.
Yeah, Olympic swimmers can't survive in waters like that.
Yeah. And then also water, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have water. You've got just ocean water. We know that's not drinkable. That'll just dehydrate you, in fact, and you'll go mad and insane. And you're going to go mad and insane from not drinking anyway. But so they ran experiments on rewarming bodies, figuring out how long it took to
thaw a body
to actually freeze somebody. There were doctors, in fact, that were tried at Nuremberg and met with officers in the United States military, some of which admired their work because they found out a lot why? How did they sort of expedite their experiments? Well, testing on human beings, of course.
Duh.
Yeah, they figured out, they were calculating, heartbeats and how long it took to stop breathing and trying to resuscitate, and they found out a lot about it.
Yeah,
I believe they did do a lot of resuscitation work and whatnot. I mean, it took a lot of lives.
That's sick.
Another experiment.
Obviously, these people didn't go willingly into be the guinea pigs.
Right, and that's a pretty bad way to go.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't imagine, dude. That's so crazy.
There were also test facilities at a place called the Robbers Lair. No, excuse me.
Vulcan Road? Are we still talking about Dachau?
No. There was a place called Gereberg as well where they had low pressure chambers.
Yeah.
So they had an entirely photographed timeline of explosive decompression with human test subjects. Very, very few survived.
Explosive decompression.
They had low pressure chambers, and they would run tests on human beings
to see how
they reacted to explosive decompression. Why? Well, high altitude flight, of course. This was aviation medical research on human being.
So let's see how long it takes until this guy's intestines explode.
Or no, here's a low pressure chamber, and then so let's what is it? So when you go higher, when you're in a pressurized chamber at altitude, and then all of a sudden you lose pressure and you're at 30,000 feet,
What happens to your body?
Then all of a sudden there's virtually no air pressure. Just
your whole body.
It just it like I don't know
mist in
exactly.
the memory?
It didn't get into the book. Didn't get into what happened, but it wasn't good.
Up.
Most people died.
Yeah, I'm sure that sounds terrible.
Most people died. Vulcan Road was actually, I can't recall the human experiments that might have happened there, but one thing that I did know was, because they were doing this shit everywhere, dude.
That was, it says here, the effects of Mach 0.0 to 1.2 studies. That was when they put these people in.
No, they didn't put people. This wasn't necessarily people that I was talking about here. Vulcan Road had 7 wind tunnels, the most technologically advanced in the world at the time. Nobody else had any technology like this.
Okay.
They were studying and had a ton of research on the effect of the swept wing. The Allies hadn't discovered this yet. So now if you look at jets, the front edge of the wing, now if you look at advanced aircraft, the front edge of the wing is swept back. It's not like a straight line, straight out.
Like a Mustang.
Yeah, like a Mustang. It's swept back.
A Japanese Zero.
Meaning the far point, extended point of the wing is further back than where that point starts on the fuselage.
Okay. Extremely aerodynamic.
Yeah, it is. Of course, they need it at those speeds. And they found out, all sorts of research on the effects of the swept wing at Mach 0.8 and Mach 1.2, which Mach is the speed of sound.
Yeah.
So the Allies didn't have aircraft as advanced as the Third Reich.
No. Well, and they were working on those high altitude stealth bombers.
They had jets and whatnot. They were working on delta wing designs and stuff like that. Their aviation industry was incredibly advanced. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know anything about that other than it.
So were they working with the aliens?
Maybe. I don't know. I think it was just a bunch of people that somehow were able to compartmentalize that these are not human beings and we have free reign to learn whatever we can. So it's for the science, it's for the Reich.
Well, Nazi ideology actually had terminology to explain this, and people like Germans, and then particularly their sort of echelon of Germans, they were
superior.
Officers. They were officers. They were the thinkers and the movers of this this Reich, this new nation.
It's 1,000-year Reich. They were promised 1,000-year Reich, that Germany was going to conquer the whole world.
Yes.
For 1,000 years.
1,000 years.
Yeah, and some of these guys, we're not going to name any names, but one of the particular commanders of a battalion of EZG, what they're called, the Nazi death squads that went through Eastern European or Northeastern Europe, Estonia, Lithuania. We were talking about it before this. He was such an intelligent individual, apparently, and he was so proud of it that he wanted to be called Doctor last name. These weren't just some schmucks off the street. These guys were.
Oh yeah. These were the most educated and cutting edge of their field in the world.
I mean, they were educated.
Or among them.
Yeah, they've been to different schools in different countries and learned other stuff. I mean,
actually, to bring this into perspective, I would encourage everybody to read that book. You need to read that book.
Operation Paperclip.
This is not about our podcast.
Thank you.
Honestly, this is not about our podcast. Well, not that it ever is anyway. This is a hobby for us, and we just love doing this for you
unless
guys.
We can do it as a career.
But this is about this information, and it's about buy this book. Get all of the details that you can about this.
Yeah,
this is serious shit, man.
It's crazy.
Happened. And
not even 100 years ago.
Yeah,
this is like 80 years ago.
People are capable of this shit. People can do this.
This is an ideology that, I said to Theo before recording that I really think it's the same along the same ideology that they believe they were superior human beings, and that these other individuals, the Jews and the undesirables, were less than human.
The terminology that the Reich had for it was, or had prescribed to it, was Übermenschen.
Yeah. Less than human.
Oh no, Uber. Uber.
Super?
Uber, men. Übermenschen.
Oh.
Overmen or something like that, right?
Yeah, okay.
And under, right? Or something like that. Undermen. These
So,
are, we
yeah.
can test on them.
Yeah.
Because we are superior.
We're superior.
to them. Yes, our
Yeah.
blood. Our tissue.
This is along the same ideologies that white people are just born racist.
Well, I mean, yes. Yeah.
They convinced a whole population of not just the country of Germany. They convinced, the countries around them when they went and annexed them.
That's another thing that they were really good at.
Yeah.
Was propaganda and convincing
Absolutely.
a lot of people of things.
Remember The Sound of Music?
Heil Hitler.
Oh, good afternoon, Herr Zeller.
Perhaps you've not heard. I'm now the Gauleiter. Heil Hitler.
Heil Hitler.
Are you not a Nazi? When they annexed
Germany moves into Austria.
I've never actually watched The Sound of Music, I know.
well, you unculturized swine.
Right. I am
But-
an intervention.
But this and then like I said, the EZG, that German death squad, they weren't the ones actually, the Eizengruppen, thank you. They weren't the ones actually pulling the triggers. They're making the Lithuanian military. Don't you believe in the Third Reich? We will watch you and we will supervise. Meanwhile, taking pictures with the intent, oh no, Germany did not do this. This is the Lithuanians doing it to each other.
Yeah.
See?
See?
We have the photographic evidence.
Yeah. It's perfect.
It's sick, dude. And if the Lithuanian soldier didn't want to shoot down one of his own countrymen, that was, yeah.
Got
guess
the
what?
old Mauser model 1898 8mm.
Yeah,
in
the
their
Car
back.
98, dude. 8mm to the back of the head. You just go in the ditch with the rest of them. Anybody else want to not fire on these guys? Anybody else want to play games? Stupid games, win stupid prizes, yeah?
Did that think so?
Yeah.
Yeah. You shoot in the
It's
end.
sick, dude. Like, to think that human beings, are capable of doing something like that, I can't stomach it, man.
There's a couple other things that I want to talk about here before we wrap this first installment up.
Yeah.
All right. So, General Bernard Montgomery.
The general.
No. He was from Britain. He said Z.
Oh, yeah. General Montgomery, mate.
Now you sound like an Aussie, dude.
Oh, sorry.
And
Bloody hell, it's General Montgomery. Erock's in a band, so he's been around the world. He knows the difference between Brits and Aussies.
General Bernard Montgomery reached a German test facility called the Robber's Lair. They found these really interesting wooden aerosol chambers is what they figured they were. They were aerosol chambers, and they were like 60 feet tall by 100 feet wide, or in diameter, right?
Okay. 60 feet?
60 feet tall.
High and 100 holy
feet
smokes.
wide. Yeah. No joke. Advanced.
That is insane. And, okay.
And it was here at this
Those are
place
huge.
that they figured out that they had been developing nerve agents that were far more advanced than anything anybody knew about at that time.
Okay.
I believe. I don't know. There's rumor the Soviets had pretty advanced, but nerve program, chemical programs.
Probably still do.
One of the things that they found were a bunch of artillery shells marked with either like one yellow ring or three yellow rings. The one yellow ring they figured out that's like the international symbol for mustard gas, which is another thing that the Germans actually developed for the First World War.
Right. They just made it better.
Yeah, and then both sides used it in the First World War. And then the three rings, it was like a big secret. They didn't know what it was at the time. But they used people that worked around the area to kind of like, hey, we need your help extracting this stuff from these shells, figuring out what it is.
Yeah.
They brought in all these like mobile medical units and whatnot, or laboratory units.
Yeah, the Army's and the Navy's best and brightest in chemical warfare or whatever the fuck it was, engineers.
Yeah,
right.
And they medical experts, and they brought a bunch of rabbits and stuff, and they determined that the agent in the shells with the 3 yellow rings, was like it would kill a rabbit or small mammal like 3 times faster than anything they had ever observed before. And figured out it was what the Germans called Tauben through a series of investigations and records and finding people, which was actually derived from the English word taboo. Tauben. Taboo.
Some black magic.
Well, I mean, like, yeah.
Mustard gas, dude. Natural gas or nerve agent.
So, it didn't actually need to be inhaled or aerosolized and then inhaled. Simple drips on the dermis, on the skin, would kill.
Really?
Yes.
It's like fentanyl?
Yeah, I guess. You know, fentanyl's synthetic. Fentanyl is, fentanyl's synthetic.
Mm-hmm. It's not as, I think, dangerous as Tauben.
No, Tauben is not. I don't think Tauben's a good high. I think it's a weapon of war. But one of the more alarming things is that not only that, but they were working on vaccines for all of the agents as well, and like biological agents and bacterial agents. So the idea was that they were going to vaccinate their own soldiers, and then like just wipe out towns and shit, and send their soldiers like, well, the work is done. You just walk in now.
We didn't have to kill anybody. Let's bring let's bring the slave labor to clean up these dead bodies.
It's ours now.
Victory! Yeah. Let's drink some Dunkels.
For the fatherland.
Some Jägermeister.
Another development in 1930s Germany. 1930s Nazi Germany. Jägermeister.
Yeah?
Yeah, fun fact. I learned while doing this.
Oh. Did not know that.
It turns out also that, the most infamous of the camps, Auschwitz, was not only an extermination camp, it was a work camp. But there was another facility there that is really more profound than not any of the others, because there were others that were situated like this, but this is the best example. There was a complex at Auschwitz called IG Auschwitz.
Yeah.
And it was named after, I want to say, the 4th largest corporation in the world at the time. IG Farben. Owned the patent on Zyklon B. That was the gas for the chambers.
You know what was in this? Zyklon B. You remember what the Nazis had? Listen. Empty. This was used, man. This was actually used.
These absolute maniacs developed Zyklon B to gas Jews, gypsies, homosexuals,
undesirables, deplorables, as Hillary Clinton would call them,
folks from out east, if you will,
Russian, Ukrainian prisoners, all that stuff. Yeah,
it was the craziest thing to me is that it was essentially a public-private partnership. That's what IG Farben Auschwitz was.
Yeah, they were just doing business.
Auschwitz was an SS death camp, which the SS was how do you say it? It was like a outside of the framework, outside of the civil law framework, paramilitary organization, right? And they ran all these death camps. It's like they wrote their own law. So this isn't like German law. And we're not under German.
This is Auschwitz.
Yeah. It's like they were a paramilitary organization that was that operated completely outside of fundamental construct of law.
Like did whatever they want.
Say again?
Like the FBI.
Thank God the FBI is not like this, but they could become.
Well,
I don't know.
We're seeing a lot of political partisan motivation.
But we're not talking about the FBI. We're talking about the SS.
Deep state.
We're talking about the SS, yeah. But yeah, it was a public-private partnership, man.
Well, and like we talked about earlier, yeah, they performed human experiments there, as well as not just killing them with Zyklon B.
Well, actually,
I'm sure they experimented with different chemicals before they find Zyklon B, right?
It wasn't just only experiments. It was IG Farben's like the fourth largest corporation in the world at the time. Okay. And they are paying $3 a day for unskilled labor and $4 a day for skilled labor to who?
The SS?
The SS.
Wow.
What the fucking SS is like, they got like a money line to start writing checks. Like they're sending all these checks to these people's families. Hell no.
No. They're pocketing that cash.
Yes, it's going into their bank account.
This is for the Third Reich.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Dude, at one point in time, I think it was the CEO of IG Farben.
I'm sure he didn't know anything about the human experiments going on.
Right? Yeah. That was what he fucking told everybody, right?
They said that they were making rat poison.
That's what they told everybody. And he was a banker as well. I could be wrong on that. There was one of these guys that was at like the most Ashcan, it was called. It was the Palace Hotel in Luxembourg. I can't remember the name of the town, but that's where they were holding these guys and interrogating them and shit. And he had a confession to make after they showed video of like, hey, we know what you guys were up to, and piles of bodies at these camps and shit.
Yeah.
And we're talking like German high command folks that they're showing this movie to. He's like, I must come clean. I have to tell you after the movie, right? I have been a bad man. Well, I decided that we were going to, take all of the gold from the mouths of the Jews in the camps.
The fillings.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and their gold bands or wedding bands.
It turned out that they fought too much unless they were dead. So they just killed all these people.
For their
fucking
gold teeth.
Their fillings and their caps and they just fucking killed them. Why? Because it was easier to get them out of their mouth.
I feel so terrible about it.
This is why I said at the beginning of this podcast. This is the most horrific shit that human beings can imagine, right? And doing to other human beings.
Yeah.
I don't know. The Christian Bible and all of the other major world religions talk of a fiery hell. It would take some force of the universe to be worse than what we're explaining right now. It would take something that has command of those forces to be worse than what happened to these people.
Yeah, it's unimaginable.
Yeah,
it's truly
it's the worst that can happen.
Yeah, and you see interviews of people that were children around these towns where these camps were built, and they knew exactly what was going on. You could
absolutely
smell it.
Had to. Yep,
you could smell it.
I can't stand it any longer. It's the smell. If there is such a thing. I feel saturated by it. I can taste your stink. And every time I do, I fear that I've somehow been infected by it. It's repulsive. Isn't it?
They weren't stupid. But no. Yeah, I'm sure it smelled way worse than... Even next to a rendering, I've driven past rendering facilities that probably could get that close stench, but I couldn't imagine that, dude. And then that was the other thing. The population. What could you say? If an SS officer or German or not officer, but just a German soldier, you don't know what he is, who he is.
Gestapo
comes up to you and says, "Hey, let me get a drink of that beer." You hand it over because You may not know what the hell's going on. You can smell the stench, though, and you know that doesn't want to happen to you.
They were thugs.
Oh, yeah, they
were
absolutely
just
were.
complete thugs, and they took control of a nation.
Papers,
but it was,
please.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me see a vaccine card.
But it was... Well, yes.
Yes. Well, yeah. And learning more about, like I said, those the Nazi death squads that went through northeastern Europe and doing all this stuff, a lot of the soldiers, they stayed drunk and methed out all the time. I mean, because just the things that they were doing were... Even... They weren't maybe doing it, like I said, with the Lithuanians. Oh, we'll shoot you in the back of the head. But still, they were witnessing all that, right? And, I mean, some people have, like... Some type of you... If you're a human being and have it hard at all, you have to know that, like, this is not right.
Well, what this boils down to me, is that people's minds and judgment can be bent, rather.
Manipulated?
They can be manipulated.
Absolutely.
They can think up as down. People are programmable.
The magic talking box told me so, dude.
Well, at that time, the magic talking box was Goebbels over the radio.
Yeah. And that's all you knew.
For a small investment, you could hear that anywhere. You know?
And then they burned all the books that didn't align with their ideology.
So next, we're going to get into the people. We're going to get into the people, and we're going to get into the aftermath.
Names.
We're going to get into the how and the why of...
And the extent that they went to. And the that's what fascinates me. Especially when they went to cover things up. The logistics. Not just covering up, but operating.
Well, I was kind of talking about some of the people involved and what happened to them afterwards.
Right.
We're going to go through that.
Well, we'll talk about some of what they did. We'll name some of these names that we talked about this shit.
And their connection to these places.
Yeah. And remember, these were the good Germans. So, the next show, we're going to name some names.
We're going to name more good Germans, in fact.
We didn't really name too much of them, but we'll put some links together.
Not too many. We
just wanted you guys to be aware, like, doesn't matter what their names were. This is what they were capable of doing in the name of the Reich and the name of science.
It wasn't just ovens and
mind you,
whatnot. It was experiments on human beings.
It's not like
it was advances in technology on the backs of human lives.
Right, because they were superior to these other humans somehow
in their beliefs.
Right, and then we'll get into how they got nice cush government jobs after the war ended. So stick around, folks. We really appreciate you guys listening.
We sure do.
And liking and sharing.
Subscribing and driving and...
Yeah.
And learning.
And learning with us, yeah.
And vibing.
I've been learning a lot more since I've been having to do deep dives and stuff, and I was like, oh, man. So this is not only educational for us, for you guys, but it's educational for us as well.
Hopefully it's educational for you guys. It'd be awesome if it was. And then spread it. Spread it word of mouth. Spread it like a wildfire.
Spread it like a big old smile.
Yeah.
Deadly disease.
You've been playing too many mobile games.
The savage chimes in right at the end. He was quiet for a while.
Yeah, he was learning too. All right, thanks a lot, folks. This is Iowa Talk Guys signing off.
Hey, don't eat the yellow cake.
Please remember.